Pastor Joseph hadn't always been a man of God, at least not in the way his followers believed. Before he found his calling as a pastor, Joseph Adekunle had lived a much different life. He had been a hustler, running small-time scams on the streets of Lagos, moving from one scheme to the next in search of a quick buck. But there had always been something more to him, an innate charm, a gift of persuasion that allowed him to convince almost anyone of anything. It was during one of his hustles that Joseph had met Baba Jaro, a feared spiritualist known for his dark powers. Baba Jaro had taken a liking to Joseph, sensing the young man's ambition and hunger for wealth and power. "You have potential, boy," Baba Jaro had said one night, as they sat in the dimly lit shrine, surrounded by the smell of incense and the eerie chants of unseen spirits. "But you are wasting it on petty schemes. If you want real power, real wealth, you must be willing to do what others fear." "What do you mean?" Joseph had asked, intrigued by the old man's words. "There are powers in this world that the ordinary man cannot comprehend," Baba Jaro had replied. "Powers that can bring you riches beyond your wildest dreams. But they require sacrifice, devotion, secrecy, and loyalty. Are you ready for that?" Joseph had nodded, eager to learn the secrets that Baba Jaro held. Over the following months, he had undergone strange and unsettling rituals, binding himself to forces that promised him the success he craved. In return, he was instructed to use his newfound powers to build something that would draw people to him, a church. At first, Joseph had been skeptical. He had never been a religious man, and the idea of leading a congregation seemed absurd. But Baba Jaro had insisted. "People will follow you if you give them what they need," the old man had said. "And what they need is hope. Give them that, and they will give you everything they have." And so, Joseph became Pastor Joseph, the anointed man of God. His rise was swift. He started with a small congregation, but word of his miracles spread quickly. He would stage healings, using actors to pretend to be sick or crippled, only to miraculously recover after his prayers. He preached about financial breakthroughs, encouraging his followers to sow seeds of faith by giving generously to the church. Within a few years, Miracle Fountain Ministries had grown into one of the largest churches in the city. Joseph lived in luxury, driving expensive cars and living in a mansion, all funded by the tithes and offerings of his followers. But as his wealth grew, so did his greed. The miracle services were always the highlight of Pastor Joseph's ministry. People came from far and wide to witness the power of God manifest through their leader. Every Sunday, the church was packed to capacity, with overflow crowds gathered outside, watching on large screens as Pastor Joseph performed what many believed were divine acts of healing and deliverance. But behind the scenes, everything was carefully orchestrated. In the early days of his ministry, Pastor Joseph had relied on simple tricks, hiring actors to pretend to be sick or disabled, only to be miraculously healed after his prayers. But as his fame grew, so did the complexity of his deceptions. One Sunday, a woman in a wheelchair was brought to the front of the congregation.